January 1971. My bar mitzvah at Temple Beth Ami, a long time ago in a neighborhood not so far away in scenic Reseda, California. 3 blocks from where I'm now Rabbi. Now, as campus rabbi at the LA Jewish Home, I get teased an awful lot. How long do I have when I'm giving a drash or sermon before the congregation falls asleep? Well, I've learned I have to drash right to the point, yashar, yashar, yashar. So those of you who are hoping for a 30-minute dissertation on Parsha Shemot today, you're going to be gravely disappointed. We're told that the Parsha we read on our bar bat mitzvah is linked to us for our life. I found this to be true, and I want to share some of those thoughts with you. Shemot begins, Ve'ela Shemot b'nei Yisrael haba'im Mitzrayma. These are the names of the children of Israel who came down to Egypt with Jacob. The Torah lists them all and reminds us that Yosef haya b'Mitzrayim, and Yosef was already in Egypt. And Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchak, better known as Rashi, asked the obvious question, why? Is it possible we forgot that Yosef was already in Egypt? We just read this last week. Last week's Parsha went through the blessings of Yaakov to all of his children, reminds us that Joseph is in Egypt. So no, of course not. We didn't possibly forget. But it reminds us that God remembered all of them in their lifetimes and how precious they were, so we recount them again. This teaches us that Hashem remembers them, and all the more so, kol v'chomer, so should we. To remember, to recall. These are important themes in Judaism. We say 4 times a year a Yizkor service, a service of remembrance of those who came before us. On those days when we recall somebody leaving us, we have a yortzeit. We take it as a commandment, an obligation to remember those who came before us. My bar mitzvah, so long ago in a synagogue that no longer physically exists, but my link to Parsha Shemot is I remember. I choose to remember. It's an obligation I take with me from the Parsha. I choose to remember a place where my parents worked tirelessly and endlessly to create a world for my brothers and I to grow up in, where they gave me and my brothers the example of service of being a volunteer, of service and service to the community being a very, very good thing. It was a place where I grew up to become president and have that community and little corner of the Jewish world entrusted to my care. And when it became very clear that we could no longer sustain the community as is in Reseda, California, as an executive officer, I endorsed the merger process because it was the right path and it was the proper path. Please note, I didn't say it was the easy path or a pathway without struggle or even some heartbreak. I drew the task of sitting with the rabbi of the congregation, the rabbi my own father, Zikrono Livracha, brought in as chair of the search committee to be our rabbi and give him news he did not want to hear. When the time came, I advocated for and endorsed and voted for the sale of the property on Kittredge, where I became a bar mitzvah, because it was the right thing to do. I watched the sacred scrolls of Torah, the Sifrei Torah scrolls being removed from the building, and I watched the new owners of the site bring in the articles and icons of their own faith. But in the link to my bar mitzvah parsha, the list of names we choose to remember, I found it's my task to remember what was in Reseda, once the center of Jewish life in the West Valley. I know change is hard, and huge changes like the merger of 2 congregations is even harder. It's hard to give up what we know and what we're accustomed to. We fear we will lose all we work to create. The fact is that change and new development is part of sustaining life. The Jewish people have always dealt with change and with new paths. If we were incapable of change, Judaism would have ended with the Korban in 70 AD. Let me just divert from my text for a second. 70 AD, the synagogue, the great temple in Jerusalem, is destroyed utterly by the Romans. They destroyed the political center of the Jewish world, our military center, and the center of our faith. And yet, we sit here today together as Jews. When you visit the Ir Atika, you look up at the Kotel, and you see above it the blue and white flag. If you did as my wife and I did this past summer, you visit Rome, you visit the great synagogue of Rome. The Romans are long gone. We're still here. Part of sustaining Jewish life in the West San Fernando in the West San Fernando Valley was accepting change in new directions. Sustaining Jewish life depended on the courage to move forward and the recognition of remembering who we were and where we came from. And in those changes, be open to new ideas, new direction, new opportunities. That long ago merger brought me from a small and declining shul in Reseda, who was having more and more trouble offering the service and services the community needed. I stayed with the new organization, a larger, better rooted community, and in that full service community, I discovered not only worship, I discovered new learning and new pathways to be of service. I have to share, and thinking of the uproof couple here, STS was such a full service community, such a full service congregation, that one day while building the sukkah, I noticed a tall woman wearing short running shorts and long legs bopped in. What could I do? I married her a few years later. My friends, that is a full service congregation. These memories of communities we take with us wherever we go. To this day, when we read the Yortzeit list, I stand and remember those who served the community of my youth. They mattered, and remembering them matters. I can promise everyone here, we will remember and take with us the memory of the community we built. Together, we'll build something new and wonderful with new friends. Just as the Bnei Israel went to Egypt, and they are still lovingly remembered by us, we too will lovingly recall Shomrei Torah as we move forward into the future and new opportunities. Shabbat Shalom and Mazel Tov, guys.